Hi, everybody. Welcome to My Other's Keeper. I've got my good friend Mary with me today. Yay!
Who's all bundled up because it's cold.
It's cold outside. Yeah, I'm not even sure what
About
my
18
temperature
degrees.
is. It's 18 degrees or so. Man, what am I at? I am at, I have to wait for the page to load. Yeah, I'm at some sort
Hi,
of
Daniel.
yuck right now.
I did a
So,
live earlier, so you can go see it if you want to see what it looked like outside. Sometimes it actually helps my body.
awesome.
I know it just
No, I
people.
did see, I saw your snow.
Yeah. Every once in a while to go
I did see it.
outside when you're hurting, it does actually help because it kind of stops.
Oh, does it really?
For a little
Gets
bit.
you loosened up a bit?
Yeah.
And okay,
No, it just
okay,
helps to numb it for a little bit.
It's like putting ice on your joints.
Yeah, but I can't do that because it's all over.
Oh, okay. Well, so you'd basically have to pack snow all around. You'd become a snow woman, the abominable
No,
snow
I'll just
woman. Hi,
stand
Daniel.
outside
Hi,
for a few
Crystal.
minutes. I think it does a good mental body good too. So
it does. I've heard that rumor. I'm not sure I totally agree with it because I'm in half pajamas. So from here up, I look all put together. From here down, I'm in jammies.
I'm in jammies too. So, and I got a snowman
There you go.
jammy shirt on, so I'm rocking. But
there you go. That
I
works.
needed my pashmina on. Yep.
Ah, and that looks nice and cozy, that one.
Oh, these things,
so
we have them in
soft.
so many colors. It's Cuddle
Yeah.
Duds pashmina, and we have them in so many colors, and I just throw them on, and they're just enough to keep you warm. It's wonderful.
Yep.
They're my favorite.
Yep. One of my girls gave my husband in particular, but technically my husband and I, an electric blanket for our queen size bed, and it's got 2 zones. So I can have it cool.
That's
He can
cool.
have it, like, it won't cool me off, but I mean, I don't have to have it
Yeah.
on, and he can have it like really
Yeah.
warm if he wants. And yeah, it's really kind of sweet. And then if you really want, and you're napping alone on the bed, you lay on top of it, you roll the other half over, and then you turn both sides on, and you've got this heat taco. That's pretty sweet, I gotta say. So yeah, that's
they do say the happiest marriages are that you don't share a blanket, and I have to agree. When we had a full king size bed without the split, we got about a year in, and we thought, this is ridiculous because he just you're tearing the blanket away from me. And I said, you have your blanket, you have mine. If we want to come together, we'll take the blankets away.
That's right.
And we still do that.
We'll
I
meet
have
in the
my
middle
blanket. He has.
sometime, and yeah.
It's worked very well. So,
Oh, that's excellent.
yes.
So,
good piece of advice.
How have you been since I last saw you? It's been a while. I haven't seen you since before Christmas.
We were busy.
Yeah.
I will never do that again. It has taken me probably a week to recover, if not more. We need to get some stuff pre-recorded because I was tired. I do not know how Tommy does it. I do not. I just sat there going, how does he do this?
You have no
every
life.
Day?
You have no life. It is
because I was sitting there going,
and that's it. Yeah.
But it was worth it because we wanted people to have the connection. What was interesting about it is when I didn't title anything, people had no idea what it was all about. It was like Christmas connection. Okay, what do? You come and do what? You say the word hello. And it was just like once we started putting topics with it, people would come in. But, I really hope that people will start getting in to other people's chats that have the communities and start connecting. That's what I've kind of restarted doing again, is starting to go into live chats or into like the short stuff and find other channels and say hello and meet other people. And it's actually been really cool.
Yeah.
So we were busy, and then Patty celebrated another birthday. We don't know if she'll be here for another one, but we got through.
Yes.
January 10th was her birthday.
Oh yeah.
And she says the hardest time is to actually after she eats. That's the hardest time for her.
Really?
So she's really struggling to eat. The hospice doctor says it could be
for her. Is it the swallowing and the nausea, or what's
the cancer's just spreading? the cancer on the liver is going out. So it's putting pressure on different points and so forth. So
makes sense. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And her
Yeah,
new
I
hurdle
pray
is
for
she
her
went
every
to
time I
get
think of
her.
her. So, yeah.
The new hurdle is she got her driver's license, which was up in this past month, and she got her
Mm-hmm.
driver's license done, and they denied her with the eyes. So she has to go to the doctor. She has cataracts, and they won't do cataracts now. So if she can't get that resolved, then she's lost the ability to drive, and I think that's going to be devastating for her.
Wow.
Because that'll be her
That's
freedom
rough.
going away. Yeah. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
be praying that that's resolved for her, because
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't want to have that taken away yet. I don't think she's ready for that yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, that's.
I'm telling you, she's been here longer than the doctors thought she was. She has just been here, just
She's a
chugging along.
fighter.
And that's what
She's
I
a
told her, just
fighter.
like my dad. You're a fighter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She's chugging along.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Ah. So before Christmas, though, you and your daughter took a trip down
yes.
memory lane, which was not necessarily comfortable for you, but
No.
yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about where you went and why you went?
Well, we had talked about prior to that. I think it was around, I don't know when it was, but before we went, I think it was around her birthday or something like that. And I said to her, I said, one of these days, it's only about 5.5 hours to Danville. We should take you there. We'll probably have to stay at a hotel overnight and take you around to where, you were born, in the hospital and all that kind of stuff. And she goes, that sounds like a great idea, Mom. And I hear the snow shovels back out again. They're doing more snow removal. Anyway. And so it just happened that when we went to Thanksgiving, we were then just an hour away from Danville. And they made the decision over the holidays that they were going to, because she had family, they do this big gathering at my husband's aunt's house, as long as his grandmother's still here. And then they're probably going to scale it back just because of size. And so I said to her, you just have to realize Grandma could be here. She's 95. She could be here or not next year. And you have to just be aware of that. So anyway, she decided to come. Well, Jared had family that was celebrating for the first time and was getting older, and grandparents and so forth. And so they made the decision that we'll have plenty of Thanksgivings together, but you go be with your family. You will I'll be with my family, and let's do this. I really want you to be able to do this. And so she came with us. We would have loved to have Jared with us, but it just didn't work out. And so we went, we did that. And so Christina came along, and I said to her, Friday, we weren't really doing anything because Christina was, we have a party for his father's side of the family on Monday or on Saturday. So it was like, this doesn't make any sense. We're going to have nothing to do. Danville's only an hour away. So let's give this a try. So anyway, we went ahead and did that. And we had all the plans, to go ahead and do that Friday. And Josh woke up not feeling well Friday morning. And so he had a gastroparesis episode. So there's not much I can do with him when he has that. And I said, I can stay here if you want. And he said, no, I really want you to go. And so I was going to do some recording while we were there, but it just didn't work out. And I'm really glad. Christina said to me, Mom, I'm really glad that he really didn't come, because she asked some hard questions and Mama had to answer them. And so we went. She drove about 45 minutes into Danville, and I said, I want to drive into Danville. Now, I don't drive very much anymore. So I said, just the last 10 minutes, I want to drive into Danville, because then I knew my way around there enough that, And so I drove in, and I can tell you the anxiety is just going up. Even thinking about going in there. And But and I can say this, if we had moved to Ohio and we weren't in Indiana an hour away, I wouldn't have made a special trip to come up here and show
Right.
Christina all this. But it was
No,
just
no.
what it was. And we were
Yeah.
this was 25 years later before. I left Danville when Christina was 2 weeks old because my life was threatened by my ex-husband.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents were there, and I went upstairs and I said, "You've got to get me out of here." I
Mm-hmm.
went back with that marriage several times trying to make things work. And every time we left Danville, Indiana, was always underneath this level of anxiety. It was, you're leaving for your life the first time. And then the second time I went back during Christmas and I left. I really didn't want to leave, but I left because we were trying to still work things out. And then the third time I went back was underneath another difficult situation. And at one point I was holding Christina. She was probably about 4 or 5 months old at that point, and he was upset with something or other. We were at his mom's house and I was holding her, and he just reared back his fist and he said to his mother, he said, "Watch out, I'm going to hit her." And I said, "You hit me, you're going to get hit right back." And that was just so. And my dad came with me with that third visit. He was just so panicked that something was going to happen. So everything was just always tense. So the thought of going back to
Was
Danville,
his mom okay with him wanting to hit you?
No, she stood right in front. She don't you dare.
Okay, good.
She
So it
took a
wasn't
hold
a
of
way
him.
that he had grown up as this is okay and that kind of thing.
He was grown up with some abuse, unfortunately.
Okay.
And he also went through he didn't have the right therapy. He didn't have any therapy. He was told it was, don't waste your thing on therapy. And there's reasons behind that. And I don't feel like that's his story. And I don't feel like that's my place to say anything. So I'm not going to. But
nope, that's fine.
But he had a lot. It saddens me to think about everything that he had to go through in his life, and not. He had a loving mother. He just didn't. He wasn't put under the right atmosphere. It's he just had a lot.
It happens too often, doesn't it?
I think a lot of counseling and therapy could have really helped him. But anyway, so I really wish Josh could have been there, because I was shaken because I was going back in there, and then we stopped off, and she wanted to go to, I said to her, "We'll take you to the Mayberry Cafe." Well, the Mayberry Cafe is like an Andy Griffin. It's all inside. It's all done. They have Andy Griffin's signage and different little places of the restaurant. It says, Barney Fife's little section. And they have the TVs going with Andy Griffin. And the food is just delicious. It's really good. And so, it's just a classic, kind of restaurant. And they're very good food and so forth. So we were going to eat there. But we started going around. I went back to, where his mom lived at one point. We went back. I sent you the picture of her standing in front of the church where we were married at. That was the hospital.
Not that one.
That was
church.
the hospital.
This is the church.
Yeah,
there we
that's
go.
the church where we were married at. She took it. And by the way, it was cold. I have never, I'm telling you, I said to him, I don't remember it ever being this cold up here. And it was snowing then. And so that was the church we were married at. Of course, I was about 7 months pregnant with her. And of course, that was also the wedding that nobody stood. I should have had some kind of sign from something when I realized nobody stood as I went down the aisle.
Oh, wow.
And I had a relative told me I'd have taken you out of there in a heartbeat. Everybody saw signs but me, which I think is typical. When you love somebody enough, when you kind of say, why didn't you leave? I'm sitting there going, well, when you love somebody, you're going to stay in. They promise you the world and everything.
And you believe them.
You believe them. And so when, and then we stopped off at the hospital. That was the next picture. I said, I think the hospital's grown. I think that was the entrance we went in. but it's grown since then. So that was the hospital that she stood in front of and took the picture. And, and then we went up a little bit out of the town because, and I couldn't remember exactly where it is, and I didn't take a picture of it, but we went, they called me from work, and he said, you got to come home. And I said, why? He said, house is gone. So when we moved up there, because my parents, we were having trouble finding him a place to live in Florida, and we went up to Indiana to go stay. His mother allowed me to stay in the house with her and so forth. And everything I had brought up there burned to the ground. And we were the top news story on the news, if that tells you how small this town is. So we tried to drive up, and I said, Christina, everything's changed. I said, I can't remember, where the turns are. I don't see anything reflecting with the turns or anything like that. So we went and ate, and I think I gave you a picture of where the two of us sitting. That was the Mayberry Cafe. You can see the snow on the ground because it's snowing at this point. Yeah. But there's a picture of the two of us sitting and eating at the restaurant. You can see little Andy Griffins all the way around there. Little pictures. Oh, yes. And but I still at the restaurant, because we ate there at one point when my parents and my grandmother came up to visit me because they were in Florida. And I still remember looking over my shoulder. I was still looking. I actually put myself in a position where I was sitting, I could see the door. Because I thought, he's not in Indiana, but I'm thinking he's going to walk through the door any moment now. Somebody's going to recognize me. It was just this.
This is like just this recent trip.
Yeah, it was like, I know he's not, but it was just those memories of sitting there with my grandmother and my dad and, Christina, I was pregnant with Christina and sitting there. And then I'm thinking, I'm watching over my back, people are going to recognize me and so forth. And nobody did, of course, but it was just still the trauma from, leaving. And,
well, especially the way you had to leave, right?
Yeah, every time. And then we even drove by the apartment building that I brought Christina home to, where I had to literally leave that quickly with a 2-week-old baby. I wanted to send him a very clear message. This is not acceptable. We got to change this now. And I drove by there, and you could just feel the anxiety rising. And then we went down a little bit and went to another house that we lived in, and I showed her that. And then we stopped off on the way out. We decided to go in and get a couple of things at the grocery store where I used to work in. And I couldn't wait to get out of that grocery, to get me out of here. Just get me out of here, because it was just, those memories coming back. And I said to her, you see that place over there? Now it's changed. They've put self-checkouts. Those weren't there when I was there. So you see that place over there? And she goes, yeah. I said, well, I stood there as he decided to grab me by the collar because he wanted $20. And I said, just as he had done that, about 5 minutes prior to that, a cop had walked by me, and the cop came up and checked out after it was all over. And I'm shaking. He looks at me, are you okay? I'm like, not really, but I ain't going to tell you anything. I'm like, there's a police officer that just came in. You may not want to do this. We don't have the $20. If you would go work, maybe we would have it, but we don't have it. He just didn't want to work. So when we were leaving, I said to her, now I can't drive all the way, but I want to drive out of here. I want to do it under my own power. And I think I sent you a picture where I was standing with that cop car. And I literally said, Danville is behind me. And you can see the snow. And I really wanted that. I thought of Reese when she was talking about the building being behind her, the flag building. I wanted those words to be behind me. And I loved it. Christina says, we're going to have to come back here again once we come. We're going to have to do this again. I'm like, She said, we got to
At
come
which point you say, I don't think so, sweetheart. Go ahead.
The Mayberry Cafe. And so we got in the car. This time, I mean, it was coming down. The snow was just coming down. And I remember sitting there saying to her, I was sitting there and I said, I want to drive out of here. And then I'll give you the car, give you the last, 15 minutes or 10 minutes, I'll change seats with you. And we're driving out of there and I'm crying. I mean, I'm just sitting there going goodbye and I'm leaving and I'm getting out of here and I'm putting you behind me because you can't haunt me anymore. And Christina said to me, she goes, Mom, but isn't this hard? She said, you're still leaving in the midst of something because the snow was just coming. I thought we got to get out of here because if we wait too long, the roads are going to get back because we have an hour drive back to his aunt's house. And I said, no, because I can look back and laugh at this. I can laugh at the snow on the ground. I can laugh at the fact that, we're laughing over the fact that it snowed hard. And then, of course, 15 minutes after we get out of Danville, the snow it stopped. It was like right over that little section. And I said, I can laugh at this. I'm crying right now. But I said, I can laugh at this. And she said to me, I said, Christina, please know there may be a time, of course, she's not had any connection. There was an opportunity for connection there, but he's chosen, or he's not really, he's fallen short of that. And so it's his loss. And she just says, I really don't want
amazing. Yeah.
She said, I don't really want anything to do. He didn't want to show up for my wedding. Neither did the grandmother, and that's their choice. But I said, Christina, I know they love you both. And she said, I just don't want anything to do with them anymore. I said, that's your choice. I gave you the opportunity to be in touch with his mother, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
And you're an adult. She had to carry that relationship. And if she chose not to do it where you feel that you're not in a good place, then don't do it. That's your choice. I said, but if you do allow him to come around you and your future children, I can guarantee you that he'll probably tell you a lot of what I said is false. Because he doesn't remember. And this isn't not on him, but it's just like he's not going to remember all of the things. And I've gotten as best of apology as I can from him at one point, and that was good enough. That was all he could do. And that took 45 minutes of a conversation with him when Christina was getting married. But I said, you've got to believe me. I'm not making this up, because when Josh and them are friends. And that's how I met him. And he said for a while there, he told me it was 100% your fault. And he said, until I started watching him, realizing, no, there's something odd. There's something wrong. And I said, I'm not saying I didn't do wrong. I did. There was things in the situation and in the marriage that I absolutely take responsibility for. However, at the same time, he needs to do the same on his side. And, but, he's going to tell you, no, that didn't happen. And that didn't happen. And no, I'm like, you've got to believe me. She goes, Mom, I believe you. She said, you've never told me anything that's been, you haven't lied to me. And I said, don't put yourself in a position where you're by yourself with him. I said, until you can trust him enough. And I said, I probably wouldn't trust him very far. And I've told that to my son-in-law, very, very, very and frank. I've said, you've got to make sure that you are there if you ever put Christina around. I know you may not, he said to Christina at one point, well, there's two sides to every story. And yes, there is. But if you've got someone who's not, I think that when people are when they're being abused, there's a lot of things they don't remember they've done when they're the abuser. There's something that goes on mentally. I just really believe it. And I said, there's, yes, there's two sides to every story, but for him to have to admit it, I think is really hard. Because
and
when he
for
did,
Jared to say there's two sides to every story, for you and I who've been through that kind of stuff,
yeah,
we know how hurtful that is. He's never been through it. He has no idea
yeah,
how
exactly.
hurtful that is. No clue.
Well, and
So,
I didn't take it as hurtful. What
oh,
I
good.
took,
Okay.
I didn't take it as hurtful at all, because there is two sides to every story. But what
There
I
is.
said, and he said, well, that's something to certainly think about that I didn't think about, was realize that when you have somebody that has been, yep, exactly. When you have somebody, Crystal said it perfectly. When you have somebody that has been the abuser, they block things out. They forget it. And so, of course, the things that I've said, I didn't do that. You know, when he was talking to our pastor, my ex-husband, and when my life was threatened, his response to our pastor was, well, that's how people talk in Indiana. And the pastor looked at him like, you've got to be kidding me. And Josh is like,
I'm in
I'm from Indiana
and
and I don't talk like that.
Exactly.
You know,
Oh, wow.
so their ability to take responsibility is non-existent. And I don't criticize anything with that, because thankfully my son-in-law was raised in a loving home with two Christian parents. So he's never seen that.
Yeah.
And unless you've gone through it, you know what I mean? You're not going to know. And once I better explained it to him, he understood it more. He was open to that. But that would be my first response, if I, honest to goodness, if I didn't know. Well, there's that side of the story. I used to do that with Christina all the time. Your dad's side, and my mom would do that too. Well, you've got a side and she's got a side, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. You know? And, my mom did it. And I
so
tried
hard.
not to do that when Christina, because Josh and Christina, even though they're not biologically related, they are very much alike. And I've had to sit with both of them when they've sat there going with me, well, she said this and he said this, and I get your side and his side, and let's try to get you to look at his side through her eyes. Try to help her walk through and say, you have to look at what dad's going through. And Josh, you have to look at what Christina's going through. But I can understand that. My mother did that. Yeah. She didn't realize how bad when my dad left, how abusive he would get. But she would come home and take one side and take the other side, and, well, truth somewhere in the middle. I think that's something that we've certainly been around in our lives.
Well, the middle is somewhere here. There's his side, there's your side, and chances are the truth is somewhere closer to this part of the middle, not this part of the middle. You know what I mean? Like, there's it. I have to shake my head when people say, oh, there's two sides to every story. And you're right. This black eye is one of the sides to the story. And let's maybe go with the bruise on my shoulder. Let's discuss that side to the story.
I mean, thankfully, I didn't have that extent.
Right.
I mean, I think it would have eventually gotten to there.
Certainly would have.
But I didn't get that far. And I was a tough cookie, which I wasn't going to put up with anything. And I told my husband today when he was saying something to me, I said, you know what? You married a tough person here.
Broad.
Yeah. I said, you ain't getting anything by me. He goes, I know. He said, I know, Mom. And I'm like, don't even go there. So I get it in the sense that, and two, if you were listening on to the first conversation that Christina and her biological father had, and Jared was a part of that, he's a very charming man.
Oh, yeah.
He's very charming. And you would sit there and think, that did this?
I know.
He's a very, very charming man. But
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know all the stuff behind it.
Yeah.
So I
And you
don't.
have to be charming to be that kind of person, because if you're not charming, who's going to stick around for the rest, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's,
And
yeah.
I've forgiven him. I just wanted to make sure that, and Jared and Christina were aware that they
Mm-hmm.
needed to be careful. And my son-in-law did come to me and say, "Don't worry. If he ever comes, I'll make sure I'm always there." And I said, "Please do.
Mm-hmm.
Don't leave your
Mm-hmm.
kids with him." You know, he did say to me, "I don't know what you went through. I know there's two sides to every story, but he said, I don't know what you went through."
Yeah.
And he said, "Don't worry. I'll make sure they're taken care of if he comes around." I said, "That's all I want." Because I
Mm-hmm.
said, you cannot. Christina is a very trusting individual. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot totally trust him.
No.
And I feel sorry for him. Because when you got past all the layers, he had a beautiful heart. He really did. It was like he had this really, really wonderful heart, but it was so hurt with all the layers of all the stuff that he had been through.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm grateful because we made a beautiful daughter, and I don't hold anything against him. I loved him when I got married to him. I loved him, when we had our daughter. There's always a little special place in my heart that will always love him.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the only thing I can say is what I went through, thankfully, was not as bad as what some abusive women go through.
That's right.
But I have a great empathy and understanding when a woman says, "Hi, Barb." Woman says, "Well, why don't they just leave?"
Yeah.
Because they love them. That's why they
Well,
don't
not
leave.
only that, but sometimes there's no place to go. They have no
Yeah.
method of leaving. They have no money. Or they don't believe, like my mom. My mom did not believe that she could make it without him. He had her so snowed. He had her believing that he was the only reason that she had whatever.
Well, look and I'm not trying to bash any content creator, but look what's happened with Jenna and Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
And look at her video that came out. She said, "I loved him. That's why I couldn't leave." And I'm like, I know exactly. And you read the comments on some that said, "Well, why didn't you just leave?" Because she loved him. It's why I
Mm-hmm.
went back 3 times. I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
my marriage to fall apart. I wanted it to work. I had a child. I saw potential. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want it to fall apart. And it
Mm-hmm.
may not be for everyone to go back to visit a place where it was triggering. And again, if I lived in
Mm-hmm.
Florida, I wouldn't have made the trip up there.
Mm-hmm.
But we talked about some stuff. She asked me some questions that I, answered, as now she's a grown woman. And there's some
Mm-hmm.
things that she knows went on within the marriage that will never be out. My son-in-law knows them. My husband knows them.
But
My mom knows
it
them.
doesn't have to go any further, right?
And no, I just don't think it's appropriate. But,
Exactly.
if you're going to get angry enough to punch a wall because your pants don't fit, or you're going to hit the picture and glass is going to fall around and you won't work because of this or that kind of thing. And,
Mm-hmm.
I just look and think he's the one that's missed out. Because
Absolutely.
I would have stayed. I told her, I said, if he would have gotten himself together, if he would have been willing to
Yep.
come to counseling, willing to
And
come
some
down to
healing.
Florida, I would have made it work, because that's what I
Mm-hmm.
wanted. But he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't willing to do any of those things. And
Yep.
then when we were going through the divorce, he would call up with horrible things on the phone. I mean, the verbal abuse was amped up even more.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just horrible, horrible things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Yep.
sure he was probably autistic. I don't
Mm-hmm.
doubt it. Because he said, when he was talking to Christina, he said, "I have a hard time getting in my emotions too." So, like
Mm-hmm.
Josh and, a lot of other people, he was misunderstood in school. Very
Mm-hmm.
intelligent guy, smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you got past all the hurt and pain that he didn't want to deal with, you got to a really great guy. He just put so many walls up, nobody could get past it.
Yeah.
So, if you can't go there in physical form, and I don't know if I could have done it even just a year or two ago, or not a year or two ago, but 1 or 2 years after. And I told Josh when we moved up to Cincinnati, I said, you ain't going to get me to move into Indiana. I won't do it. Now, maybe in once in my life, I'll have to be living back in Indiana, but I really have no desire to live there. I will go visit. I don't want to live there. Get me out of the state. I remember the first time we went back to Columbus, Indiana, where Josh was born. I remember going in the state, my anxiety was raising just going into the state of Indiana. And that was back in 2019. And it was hard to be comfortable, and I was still an hour away from Danville, but it was still kind of like that word Indiana.
Yeah.
I left fleeting for my very life. And I'm glad I went back. I'm glad I can put it behind me. And we're still working on it in therapy. It's taken me probably a year for my therapist to say, okay, are you ready to tackle that individual? I'm like, yeah. I don't want to.
If I have to. Yeah. Exactly.
And so we're going through it one little bit by one little bit. I think that Danville was a great starting point. And I knew I had, what did you say? I got the last bit of it before I was talking. What were you saying?
I just said, okay.
Oh, okay. I thought you said another question, and I was like,
no,
there's a delay,
sorry.
guys. I am glad I went and glad I did it. And again, we're working through stuff with my therapist one little bit by one little bit.
Yeah.
And I think I remember going there and thinking, I know I have about 13 something or other behind me. That time I think we were still under 12, but I knew my whole community on the YouTube and the lifeboat and Reese's channel and all that kind of thing. We're just standing right there. I didn't feel like, even though I didn't have Josh there, I didn't feel like I still had people there. They were there supporting me, as difficult as it was.
You weren't alone by any stretch.
No, I wasn't. And I was grateful for that. Because we took, and it was just crazy. Christina says, you still left in kind of a little bit of a craziness. And I said, yeah, but you know what? I left with snow on the ground, and I now literally can look back at that memory. I'm laughing. I think of Danville now. Now the memory that comes to my head is leaving and fleeing in the snow with Christina. It's not leaving. The memory that kept stuck in my head with Danville is leaving with my 2-week-old baby.
And leaving in fear.
Oh, yeah.
And leaving, running away. Like, versus, say, leaving this time, you're going to something. You're not going away from something. You're going to your family.
Yeah.
You're going to the joy that is Josh, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean. Yeah.
And when we left, and see, we didn't tell him that we were leaving. I just went upstairs and said, get me out of here. And I've told my story on here before about that. And I'm sure you can link that below. But when we were leaving, I remember we didn't tell him. And I remember a friend of his was sleeping downstairs. And my mom said, you know what? They never moved the entire time as we're taking all these boxes out. Like, I knew who kept them asleep. If you don't believe that, that's fine. But, and
God will do that to lions, and he'll do that to people.
And I said to them, I got to call him and tell him I'm not coming back home. And I called him up. I said, I'm not coming back home. He said, we got to figure this out. We can't do this to Christina. It just can't happen. And so we met at a restaurant locally. And we sat down at a restaurant before we left out of the state. And my mom and dad were so panicked I was going to get back in the car with him and go back. And
I can imagine.
I remember he wanted to say goodbye to Christina. And my mom and dad did not take the car seat out. We took Christina out for him to say goodbye, but she was terrified.
Didn't want him grabbing the car seat and going.
And running, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he just couldn't understand it at the time. I don't think he later on gave up the rights to Christina, which was really the best thing that he could have done, because he couldn't be a dad. He couldn't be there. And if he had been if he had been living wherever he was, the courts would have given him any sign of visitation. My tail end would have been exactly where Christina was, even if I had no family. It would have been right there. No way. And God protected her for sure. And he was brought back in her life, and he has since decided, so I haven't talked to him in months. She said, Mom, I don't want to. I said, that's your choice.
That's right. Now it's up to you. Yep.
But I'm going to say this to everybody that's dealing with a partner or whatever that is done you wrong. Don't sit there and don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't. I know it's real easy to sit there and say, you're dead. Don't. Because the one thing that she has said to me is, Mom, in all of the years, you have never said one bad thing about him.
Yeah.
I told her age-appropriate truth, but I did not bash him.
Right.
And I could have.
You didn't call him names. You didn't enlarge stories. Yeah.
Nope.
My guess is you probably even told her some positive things, my guess.
I did.
Just knowing you the way I do. You're just that kind of a loving woman.
I mean, I did bash him in privacy of the car or when she wasn't around.
Right.
But
that's different.
As she's gotten older, I've told her what it was, but I've never done that. And when we were on the first phone call with him, I remember Christina saying to him, I can tell you this, she's never talked bad about you. That served me well. Now, he may have done whatever to, whatever, but it didn't matter. I didn't. And I can say that when you are dealing with a child, remember that they're still a part of even the person you have disliked now that you used to love. Yeah. And they're still a part of you. Don't sit there and bash them or her. It doesn't serve you any good. It just doesn't. It hurts the kid. They don't understand what's going on. They don't deserve it. Don't do it. It's my one piece of advice that I can say from that. Yep. And then work to forgiving that person. It's not, if I sit there and hate him for the rest of my life, it's not going to serve me any good.
No. And it won't hurt him at all either. Because what does he know, right?
I've told him I forgive you. And he said, well, forgive me for the things I said. He can't not get out of the mouth to say the things I did. And so he couldn't get there because he knew he had done some things that were not okay. But at least I got that.
Yeah.
But give yourself the blessing when you can to be able to be in a position of forgiving. It doesn't mean I'm ever going to forget, but I'm going to forgive. And the only thing that I did say to Christina and my son-in-law is if it ever happens that you do get the opportunity of meeting him, I want to be there the first time.
Yeah.
Just the first time.
Yeah. And maybe even for the first 10 minutes. I don't know, but just, yeah.
I don't think I don't think that'll ever happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's his own issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Barbie didn't bash her daughter's dad. That's right. There's things you shouldn't know. And yeah, that was making excuses for the other person is very common, very, very common. And yeah, no, when I was growing up, after my parents split, I was the one saying bad things about my dad because, frankly, they weren't lying. Let me put it that way. But my mom said, Kim, you stop that. You stop it right now. In the Bible, it says, honor your father and mother. There's no time period, and there's nothing saying that they deserve the respect.
Yeah.
That is God's, and that's God's one commandment with a promise that you will have a long life.
Well, and that's one thing that he's in my prayers, that he'll come. His mother is a believer. And I pray that he comes to Christ. He's had some serious health issues, and I pray that that happens. And it's kind of sitting there thinking, well, we know that if he does, it means where he's spending eternity, but he'll be whole and new. But
that's right.
You know, I put together my testimony because that's what we're working on in our Bible study is getting to know our testimony in a very 3-minute form so we can tell it. And my first part,
concise.
Our first part of my testimony is, well, I came to the Lord when I was 5. And I said to everybody in the group, I said, you know what? I really debated whether I wanted to talk about the rest of it because it's not very pretty. I got, pregnant out of wedlock and I left an abusive marriage. I got divorced. I mean, none of it's pretty. None of it's certainly showing somebody following God, but I found God again and I came back to him and I rededicated my life. So as hard as that is to talk about and say, I'm thankful that I can have compassion for women that have had to leave abusive situations or women that have gotten pregnant. They're scared to death. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
It's going to be something that I can be there to have some compassion to somebody else.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I think if I have to go back to Danville again, I would go for my daughter. I won't be so shaken.
That's good. You now know that lion doesn't have teeth anymore.
No, and I literally think of Danville now, and I kind of smile and chuckle as I think of the snow falling. It's going out of the parking lot, and thinking we got to get out of here. I mean, there's a different air to it because it wasn't left in the mix of craziness or fear. It was left
on your own terms.
Yes.
Yep.
And hopefully next time Josh can be a part of it. And
that would be good.
We were going to go after we left Kroger's. We were going to go down to, where was it? Down to Myers, which wasn't far from there. And I was going to show her where I first got the understanding of black ice. Because this Florida girl had never seen snow. When we moved up there, it was like middle of November, and I'd never seen snow.
Oh, wow.
So I was going to show her what it was like, where it was and everything. And I said to her, we can't stick around because we've got to get out of here.
Yeah.
So, I said, we've got to get out of here. I said, I would take the trip down this way to show you, I don't know why I craved Arby's, but I craved Arby's, something fierce when I first got pregnant. And I was going to show her the first Arby's that I went to and so forth and down in there. But I said to her, we've got to go because I thought by this it's 3:30 and I thought we've got an hour and a half. And if this snow is coming down like this, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But, there was a healing process. Hi, Indigo. There was a healing process with it. So if you can't get there in person, take yourself down mental trip.
Yeah.
And put it behind you.
Yeah.
Don't have it in the forefront here.
And don't let it become bigger than what it is. Because if you don't face it, that's what happens. It stays in the back of your brain, but then it fills up the back of your brain.
Yeah.
It doesn't stay in that tiny little hole where it belongs.
Yep. And it can be this monster that can just continue
Absolutely.
to come in and be there, and don't allow it to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah,
Indigo's right. It stays rent free. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And forgive. Yeah, I look back at it and thinking, I forgive. I forgive him. I forgive what I went through. I pray for him. That's all I can do. I can't do anything else.
Now, through all of that, were you living the life of a Christian woman?
No.
No? Okay.
I mean, I knew God.
Some people will. Yeah. Well, yeah, you'd known him since you were a child.
I knew him.
And when I tell people that is like, so sort of like, yeah, I became a Christian when I was 4 and I went through a lot of crap.
Yeah.
But God didn't take away the crap. He gave me the strength to get through it. And I turned away from God. He never turned away from me. When I was ready, he just, yep, here you go. Yep. Let's turn you around again. You know?
Oh, I was angry with the world.
Mm-hmm.
I was angry with my dad. My mom and dad went through a marriage. My dad was very verbally abusive to me and somewhat to my mom. So I thought, well, if he can put up, or she could put up with this, so can I. I was mad at the world. I was mad at God. I remember growing up, I really didn't cuss in our house. My dad frowned on that terribly. And not that we would have, but I remember thinking that was so cool. Yeah, I thought it was so cool to be able to do that when I was out and about. And even though I was away from my parents' thumb, I thought, yeah, I can do this. And I didn't think anything of it. And I just remember after I got back home, those words didn't come out very often. And when I met Josh again, when we started talking again, and he ended up having he would have some cuss words that would come in and out and so forth. I'd sit there and say, you can't do that. Because sometimes it can bring back flashbacks of that time in my life. Because whenever he was going to get angry, there was cuss words flying. So I don't handle those well.
That's a trigger.
That's why, yeah, it is. And that's why some, like when channels do that, when they start having a lot of cuss words flying, it's one thing I can't always tolerate. I can somewhat, but I can't because it just brings back too much.
Absolutely.
And they can be triggering when they happen. But when I hurt my foot recently, like I said, I have no idea what I did with it, but there were some words coming out of my mouth. And I was sitting there going, Lord, forgive me. There were words come out of my mouth.
My language doesn't turn blue when I hurt myself. My language turns blue when I'm angry. That's when I have a hard time, is when I'm angry and something has happened and I am just spitting mad.
No, when I hurt my foot, I was when I hurt something, like especially my feet, I don't know what it is. I mean, I was my mom said, I'm sorry, Mom. She's like, yeah, it's okay. I was just, I just can't. But I just thought it was cool. But then when I came back and I rededicated my life to Christ about a year later, after, I needed him more and more. And I got back into, giving my life to Christ and so forth. Then those words just kind of went away because you grow.
Yeah.
And I had
to make a very specific effort to get those words away. And Crystal's right. If sometimes I'll either get really, really loud or I just go and I'm silent. And you messed up if I go quiet. So But before we got pregnant, I knew that we had to have discipline in our lives, both Douglas and myself, to get rid of a lot of the vocabulary that we had been using just carelessly.
Yeah.
Just like the little every now and then words. And it's like, no, we need to stop that, because if we have babies, they repeat stuff. And
Yeah.
if we're just saying it, they're going to repeat it. And it's going to be cute the first 2 or 3 times, not the 30th and 40th. Right. So
I was standing in line someplace with somebody, and I remember behind me, it was this little 2-year-old kid. And you all can do whatever you want. There was this grandmother standing there. And every other word was this and that and this and that. I'm thinking to myself, why? Of all the vocabulary you can use for this precious child, and this is what is coming out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Not, if you all want to use those in your own life, that's fine, but just think of them little ears.
That's right. That's and what it's doing to them, like just the tearing down that it does.
And it's something to think about too, as if you're someone that does have a channel. Realize, like for me, if you're doing a lot of that, I may not stick around. So you never know who's watching, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't or whatever on your channel. That's you do your thing. But just realize that there could be somebody on the other side that could literally have had triggers when those words were being flown. And you never know.
Yeah.
And they still today can sometimes just give me a flashback. And you just never know. So just be thinking of that when you're on it. If you're having a channel of your own, just take a moment and say, maybe I just need to be careful, because there could be somebody in your chat that's really enjoying all the connection, but they can't stay around because the words are just too hard for them to hear.
That's right.
Whatever it is, whether it is a cuss word or something else, if there's something you're talking about that's triggering, let your audience know, because there's some people that have been through an abusive marriage. They can't handle this conversation.
Yeah.
And they need to be aware of it. So
this coming Thursday, we're going to be talking about adoption. And for some people, adoption can be triggering. And it's going to be, I'm hopeful that it's going to be a joyful conversation, but I also know there's going to be some difficult things we're going to have to talk through. And it's going to be a panel discussion. So, I mean, it's going to be lots of different points of view.
I think I'm on that panel.
I believe you might be.
Yes.
Yeah, because your daughter was adopted by your husband as an adult. And that's a whole nother perspective right there. So
she was done twice, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
This is not a good sign.
That's a panel, and yes, you're on that one too. So
this is not a good sign. Remember when we first started this, I said the snowplows were out? I hear them again. If that doesn't say anything, means there's more snow. There was a guy out earlier today, and he was out, and I had the window open because I thought I'm going to watch the snow from my window while I was doing some stuff. There was a guy out with a snow blower, not a snow blower. It was a leaf blower, and he's blowing the snow around the driveway, right? And you could see that the minute he would start doing that, the snow, I'm like, why bother? To me, I said to Josh, there's a gentleman out with the leaf blower doing the snow. And I said, but why bother? Because he's just going to have to do it again. I was cracking up. He spent about 20 minutes trying to do this. And then he took out his garbage can. And I figured he'd probably just going to give up.
Yeah. Okay. Again. I have to show you this. My younger daughter gave me these for Christmas. Have you seen them yet?
No.
Okay. Let's play Whack-A-Troll. So if ever somebody is in like the comments and they're being a troll, I can hit this button. And then this one is You Bet Your Sweet Bibby.
Those are cute.
So, and anyway, so they're if you've seen on social media, dogs pushing the buttons, like food outside or whatever, that's what these are. So you record yourself and then it does that. So, I mean, when we're talking about can't even remember what made me think of that was the You Bet Your Sweet Bippy one. And it was something that you had said this, like, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it was, but Mary, you were exactly right. Yes.
But,
And Wounds to Wisdom, I'm definitely going to have to go back. I started watching your live, but unfortunately I had to duck out. I'm definitely going to be going back because, yeah, it was an emotional one today. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So,
and I did offer, if anybody was interested, we have a link tree thing we've set up. And I said, if anybody had some things, I don't want to take anybody's affiliate link, but we've signed up with the affiliate links. But if anybody wants to send anything over to us, any products from Amazon that they like or they find useful and they want to send it over to us, we'll put it underneath our link tree. And then that way we could also link your, put a little thing with your, at like My Other's Keeper. And then it could be a collection over there, and it's just another way of advertising your channel. So if anybody wants to do that, I'm glad to add that. And it's just another way of letting people know
you can put these on.
If you want to send them to me, I'll make you a collection for My Other's Keeper.
I think those
things are great. But I just thought that's another way people, when they're looking underneath, we're going to go and show people, how we're using our link tree. But I figured it was just another way to show people how they can get their channel advertised out there.
Sounds good. Well, Mary, my friend, thank you for taking us to Danville. Thank you for sharing this healing part of your journey, because that's what this exactly was this healing journey for you. And I'm so grateful that you were able to do that with your daughter. What a wonderful memory for the two of you to make.
Yes.
Yes. All right, everybody.
Thank you, Twin.
All right. I'll talk to you later, everybody. Tomorrow we will be talking about Moses and the burning bush. And I'll give you a slight synopsis between him being in the river and then the burning bush. Lots of stuff happens in between.
And we're doing daily devotions too on our channel.
And what's your topic for tomorrow?
Oh, well, I forgot. We're doing the Billy Graham's Peace for Each Day journal, our devotion every day.
Nice.
So that'll tie into our shoe boxes, because that's run by Samaritan's Purse.
Yes, it is.
Billy Graham's. And so we're doing his devotion every day. I think yesterday was the gift of the word. Today is the gift of the Holy Spirit. So we're doing a daily devotion that's pre-recorded for people to go in and listen to it.
Okay.
And we're doing the Bible verses in short form. So the Bible verses that come out each day mirror the Bible verse that's in the devotion. And it makes it really easy to do a Bible verse every day.
That would be, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So yes, check out Mary for her devotions every day. Check out me for my devotions every day.
Yep.
I'm doing Bible stories because there's a lot of people out there who as adults were never around Bibles as children. So they don't get the Bible stories that actually are in popular culture, right? They don't know why David and Goliath is a thing. They know that, David and Goliath, the little guy kills the big guy. That's the way it goes.
Exactly.
But they don't know why it is. So that's what we're doing. We're going through all these different Bible stories. In February, we will be talking about, I don't remember what it was. I'll have to go back to my previous live and write it down, because I didn't write it down. And I know that there was something else that I was planning on doing for February. Hang on. I'll figure it out. Anyway, it had to do with love. That's all I remember.
Part of February.
It had to do with love. That's right.
So we'll see you all Thursday.
We'll see you all Thursday for the adoption panel. There will be at least 4, possibly up to 6 people. And we will be having, thank you so much, Indigo.
And if you want me to share it on my channel, I'll be glad to do so.
Absolutely.
So
yes,
absolutely. Send me the link so I can set it up and put it in the live stream so people can know that it's coming up.
Awesome. Thanks, Mary. I'll talk to you
Bye,
later,
everybody.
everyone. Bye.